An industrial consultant, Jim Therian, was hired to assist in this transition process. He and Don rolled up their sleeves and immediately set to work. The first thing they did was to identify the biggest problems facing Tristate. Specifically, how was the company going to deliver their new product line and still successfully deliver their current products? Don and Jim sat down and discussed the company's needs based on the large, new contract. Next, Don met with his managers to explain that many changes were about to take place at the plant.
Initially, we met with considerable resistance. After all, we had been a fairly successful company. 16 years ago, there were 10 people in this market. Today, there are only 3 of us. We control about 75 to 80% of that market. We probably ship 95% of our product on time. So obviously, when I told my people that we were going to turn that manufacturing process upside down, I think they were somewhat taken back.
Shortly thereafter, Jim took an extensive walk through the plant on his own, stopping to ask managers and operators questions about the manufacturing process. Tristate was a traditional batch processing plant. The 37,000 square foot facility had raw material receiving at the east end of the building, where the uncut pieces of steel were brought into the plant. There, the material would be inspected. For the production of the pipe guides, steel tubing would then be transferred from receiving to an area where it was cut into shorter cylinders. Setup time for this was about 30 minutes. The cylinders were then smoothed or deburred and then transported across the plant to be welded. After being welded, the cylinders were brought back across the plant to be sawed in half. Once cut in two, the cylinder halves were taken to yet another area of the plant, where they were painted. After the paint had been applied and dried, the parts were stored in large containers and packaged as needed. After studying the process that was in place, Jim developed flow charts following the product through its various stages of production. Jim assured Don that with careful planning, they could free up space in the existing plant.
What I was trying to do is bring world-class manufacturing to a small company. Many times companies fail to achieve all that world-class has to offer because they fail to take the time to convince their people that it's good for them, it's good for the company, and by working together, we can make it happen.
That was probably my biggest hurdle, was convincing them that the change that we were going to initiate were not only good for Tristate, but good for them. And in the long run, I think it would relieve a lot of the frustration that exists in a manufacturing operation as you reach capacity or near capacity.
With the priorities clear, the teams, with Jim's guidance, designed plans for 2 new manufacturing cells and a simplified shipping department. Don knew there was still work to be done. Just because he believed that changing the manufacturing process and eliminating extra inventory would benefit Tristate didn't mean everyone else did. There would still be some friction, but he could see these changes actually working for the future of Tristate.